Morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this lovely day. I want to say good morning to all of you who are here to hear the latest news with respect to the accomplishments of our children. I want to thank the leadership of our DC public schools and our charter schools who have arrived. I see Councilmember Catania has arrived. Thank you very much for being here, Councilmember Catania, and other leadership who are here. I also want to thank Principal Johnson for hosting us here today for the release of the 2014 DC CAS results. The partnership between Scholar Academies and Stanton is a wonderful example of the kind of innovation that is taking place and the kind of opportunities that are being made available to our children. That's why we wanted to be here today, to be able to announce these results. The results this year show that the positive momentum that we have seen citywide over the past several years is continuing on. We've now seen multiple years where both sectors, that would be the DCPS, the traditionals, of course, as well as the charter schools, are both growing in performance, improving in performance, and then, of course, growing in enrollment. As a matter of fact, this past year we had a total of across public education of some 83,000 plus children, and we are projecting another 3,000 for the next school year 14-15, which would probably put us at the highest enrollment we've had in public education in almost 30 years here in the District of Columbia. So that is great news. The good news, of course, is that our families are choosing our public education programs, and our students are showing progress. And of course, despite all of that, we still agree that we have a long way to go to make sure that every child in the city is achieving at the highest levels. There's already a tremendous amount of work that is underway to address areas where we need to accelerate progress. The introduction of an at-risk weight in our funding formula for public schools is a step in closing the achievement gap, which we know continues to be quite wide. The same goes for the increase in our weight for students who are English language learners. We know that our lower income students and our ELL students face more risk factors and need additional supports over what would be traditionally provided to meet the achievement expectations. These additional funds will allow schools to target resources to meet the needs of those students. The investment that we've made in 21st century career and technical education, and we're really excited about what will be happening in about a month, and that is we'll be opening 9 career and technical education academies in a variety of schools, high schools across the city. We've been working in concert with the National Academy Foundation for now a year in both sectors in order to bring us to the point where we are restoring what people used to call vocational education back in the 90s, and it was eliminated. It was one of those things where the baby and the bathwater were tossed out simultaneously. It was clear that the curricula needed to be changed, needed to be contemporized, but in point of fact, there continued to be a need for that kind of education for so many of our students who would have opted to do so. I think, too, that it would have had a significant positive impact on addressing truancy issues for students who simply couldn't find themselves and just left school and didn't come back. We will have 9 new academies this fall, and district opportunities will have the opportunity to gain skills that they need to prepare them in 3 areas: information technology, engineering and construction, and hospitality, which of course is burgeoning across the District of Columbia. Our State Superintendent, Jesus Aguirre, is here to give more specifics on the actual results. But before we turn to him, I just want to take a moment to applaud our students, their families, teachers, and principals for having continued to stay the course and continue to ensure that our students are learning, improving, and are able to move on to successful careers. So how about a big hand for those folks? The story about progress is really, I think, a story about the dedication of those who've worked so hard, who've invested the time and the energy to do the hard work of changing the trajectory of public education in this city. And of course, we're not alone. Virtually every major city in America is challenged by improving public education. And these things didn't start, these challenges didn't start yesterday, last week, last month, or last year, obviously. And it's not an easy road, and it requires steadiness, and it requires resolve. But I think the progress that we've made over the past few years confirms that we ought to continue the course that we've charted to improve public education. So let's continue to support our educators and our students as they transform public education in the city. Again, let's keep up the hard work. I'm going to ask Superintendent Aguirre if he will come up now and provide the results. We have our Deputy Mayor, who is with us here also, our Chancellor from the DC Public Schools. And is Skip McCoy here? He's not. You going to do it, Scott? Okay, so Scott Pearson is here representing the Public Charter School Board to speak to the accomplishments of our public charter schools. Jesus?
Good afternoon. I'm gonna very quickly take a pause and ask our host here, Principal Johnson, to welcome us because we are here at her school. So.
Good morning. I am pleased to welcome Mayor Gray, Chancellor Henderson, Superintendent Aguirre, Scott Pearson of the PCSB, Deputy Mayor Smith, city leaders, DCPS leadership, friends, family, community members, to DC Scholars, Stanton Elementary. I stand before you all with full pride in what Stanton now and will continue to represent to our students that we serve, a beacon of learning. For me, for our teachers and families, Stanton continues to be a story of triumph laced with a whole lot of reality. As we seek to prove what is possible when you bring together the right combination of people and partners with a laser focus on improving the lives of students. This year marked the 4th year of DCPS's partnership with Scholar Academies at Stanton. And this year, while not without its challenges, was full of success that combined with what has led you all to be here today. This year, we successfully welcomed 150 students from Winston Educational Campus. We continued our commitment to the Flamboyant framework for family engagement and hosted more than 400 home visits. We launched a school-wide effort to own in on helping our scholars build their skills in reading as the foundation of their future success, and aligned the work of all of our partners, including our City Year Corps members, to engage collaboratively with our staff in this tough work. Our growth in reading certainly did not happen overnight. With a continued tweaking of interventions and a commitment to chopping away at below basic, we have arrived at this place. Rest assured, we celebrate our growth in this moment, and we'll celebrate with our scholars when they return, but we fully acknowledge that there is more strategic work still left to be done. Next year, we are poised and ready to continue on our positive trajectory, and we will do so in a learning environment that has been renovated and optimized for student learning. We invite you all to come back and see our scholars in action. And now, I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Aguirre. Thank you for coming and welcome.
Well, good morning to everybody. people are probably wondering why we're doing a test score results announcement on a football field outside. And I guess as a former Parks and Rec guy, I assumed all press conferences were outside, so my apologies to you. But there's a very deliberate reason why we're here, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I want to again welcome everyone who's here. I want to obviously thank Mayor Gray for his really unwavering commitment to ensuring that all of our students across the district have access to a great education. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your team, sir. Also want to welcome the rest of the folks: Deputy Mayor Smith, Chancellor Henderson, Scott Pearson, of course, Councilmember Catania. Thank you, sir, for your work and your support on the Education Committee. And, of course, all of our school leaders and all of our students are here, because that's why we're here. So I know we've got our friends from Cesar Chavez. I know Kip is here. Dunbar is here. I believe Whittier is here. I don't know if Drew is here. Other schools that I haven't mentioned, I think. Richard Wright is here, and I thought Ketchum was coming as well. There. Anybody else I missed? Friendship and Washington Latin. Thurgood Marshall. All right, big round of applause for all of our school leaders. And I also want to recognize that we have Mary Lord, our at-large member of the State Board of Education, who's here, also serves as the vice president of the board. So we're here at Stanton, and as it's been shared, there's been a lot of work that's happening here. And part of the reason we wanted to be here was also because of the work that's happening here really represents a lot of what's working well across the district. We could have been at any number of schools with these announcements because there's a lot of work happening across the district. One of the main reasons we're outside is pretty obvious, and it's the backdrop here is the investment that is represented here in the school, a $25 million investment in the facility, which is great, a great work at literally the rebuilding the school from the inside out, so the scholars here will have a fantastic environment to learn. But that investment represents and supports many of the other investments that we've been making in education, and the mayor talked about them. The investments we're making in the funding formula, particularly with our special needs students with the highest needs, our ELLs, et cetera. So the investment that we're making is tremendous, and I want to applaud us for continuing to do that. And so Stanton is a good example of why that's happening. The other reason we wanted to be here at Stanton is as has been shared, Stanton it represents true collaboration between the two sectors in education, the DCPS and the public charter schools. I have to say, under the leadership of Mayor Gray, and I think both Scott and Kaya hopefully will agree, the collaboration has never been better. The working relationship has never been better. There's always, ups and downs in any relationship, but we're really excited about the fact that together we're working as a team to move things forward, and Stanton is a great example of that. The other reason the work at Stanton represents what's happening across the district that helps move kids forward is this collaboration with the families. You mentioned the hundreds of home visits and the collaboration with City Year and other community organizations. So Stanton and many other schools, probably every school across the district, understands that we can't do it alone in the schools. You have to work with the community. So that's part of why we're here. And another reason we're here is that the work that Stanton has done, and we've said this before, there's a lot of work that yet needs to be done, and the principals have acknowledged that, but they've continued to make sustained progress. And in fact, since 2011, they've increased their math scores 29 percentage points, which is pretty amazing, and in reading, 19 percentage points. And the sustained growth has actually led to something that's really exciting for us at the state level. Is they're one of the first two schools to exit priority status. So the federal accountability system that sort of creates a system of support and accountability for schools, well, they've done well enough to have that label removed, which I think is a fantastic accomplishment. I want to thank you. The other school is Kelly Miller, and I don't believe they're here, but we also want to applaud their work. And then finally, the other reason I think Stanton is emblematic of what works is all of the things that are happening. So we talk about the collaboration with the community and the parents, but they have extra time on task. They have extended day in school year. They have after school programs. They really focus on a positive school climate, strong leadership, really good high quality curriculum. These are the things that schools across the district are focusing on, and it shows that it's beginning to work. So we're really excited to be here at Stanton. What I want to do very quickly, and you have the deck, I wanted to share with you some of the high points in terms of the actual results this year. I'm not going to go through all of them, mainly because we don't have the 2 hours that it would take me. But essentially, I want to very quickly give you a couple of key points, and one point here that doesn't specifically speak to the results today, but it's really critical as we move forward. Hopefully by now, anyone who is in DC and who's remotely connected to education knows that this was the last year of the DC CAS implementation. So as of next spring, we're going to have a completely new test. And that's important for lots of different reasons. One of the reasons I'm very proud of the work that the students and the teachers have done this year in terms of our results is, we're utilizing a test this year, the DC CAS, that wasn't built to test the standards that we've been using. The state adopted the Common Core state standards back in 2010, and teachers across the district and leaders are working to implement those standards in the classrooms. But we had an assessment that was built for the old standards. We've done some work to align it, but it's not the same as building a test from the ground up. So some of our neighbors, for example, across in the area had significant drops in their scores because that test wasn't aligned. They're really focused on the new standards, but the test wasn't aligned. So starting next year, we'll have a brand new test that will be aligned, that will give us a real test of the standards that we've been using. So that's a big message for next year. And it won't just be the core areas, the reading, the math, and the science. We're also redoing completely our science assessment. The State Board adopted a next generation science standard, so we're going to have a new science assessment next year, as well as a new health assessment that will be a real high quality assessment. So those are the things that are happening, and I think it's important to begin to have those conversations across the district. And again, this just sort of shows you the trajectory. Again, the CAS was started in 2006, and this year was the last year that we're actually going to implement it. Couple just quick numbers in terms of the testing. As the mayor said, we have really the highest enrollment across the district that we've had in many years. Of the total audit enrollment of just under 83,000 students, roughly 33,000 students took the DC CAS in the spring, and that represents almost 100% of all of the students who are required to take the test in grades 3 through 8 and in 10th grade. So that gives you a sense of the scope and the number of schools. One note that's also important to note, and again shows how much work our students have been making. The testing window was a little bit different this year, so we actually had it earlier testing, so the kids were tested on this stuff earlier before they may have had the opportunity to learn everything. So they did well even though we tested them earlier on the material they were learning. So that's important. Very brief highlights. We as other folks have said, we sustained the growth that we made last year. We sustained the improvements that are being shown in the NAEP. We've had growth both in reading, math, and science. And again, lots of work to do when you look at the proficiency rates, lots of work to do across the district, but we're encouraged that things are working and continue to work. I've mentioned as well, for the first time, we've had these schools exited priority status, Kelly, Miller, and Stanton, which I think was a tremendous testament to the work and the leadership in those schools. And we've also had some of the data that's come out is we've had the highest growth in 10th grade in over 6 years, and I'll show you some of those numbers. I've already mentioned we're going to have these new assessments lined up next year, so we'll be coming to all of you to have those conversations. And it's important to note there will be a completely different proficiency level. The levels, as everyone knows, in CAS we have the 4 levels. In PARC we're going to have 5 levels, so you really can't compare the 2 tests. So we have to do a lot of work to educate our students, educate our families on what this new test means, and really figure out the best way to move forward and make sure that the assessment is serving its purpose in terms of giving us the information we need to move forward. So here's some of the numbers. So this is a really powerful slide, I think, when you look at across the state from 2007 to now. So 2007 is when the Education Reform Act was adopted. We've had in math a 23% percentage point increase in math just in those 7 years. And as the mayor said, the performance of our schools doesn't change overnight. It didn't get where it was overnight, and it's certainly not going to get out of where it is overnight. But I think these numbers are really astounding, and we should congratulate the folks that are working day to day. In reading, we had a 14 percentage point increase, and in science, a 16% percentage point increase, and this is just in 7 years. When you go across the country and you look on a statewide or a citywide level, no one has this kind of growth. This is really impressive. As a state, we are a state, Mr. Mayor, even though in some instances people may not want to say that, but we are a state. And as a state, we've our math scores went up 1.4 percentage points, which again is not the gigantic jumps that we saw before, but it's still moving forward. In reading, we had a slight bump of 0.4% to get us at the state average there. Our DC Public Schools also had an increase in math of just over 1.5%, 1.6 percentage points. And then in reading, they had a slight bump of 0.3%. Our charter schools had an increase in math of 1 percentage point as a sector, all of the charter schools together. And then in reading, a 0.4% jump. And you obviously have all these numbers. Science, we had actually a significant jump across the state and in both sectors, 2.7 percentage point jump in science. But in composition, we actually went a little bit backwards. We slipped 0.9 percentage points across the state. By sector, DCPS also had the 2.4% jump in science and a drop of 1.9% in composition. Charter schools, similar jump in science, impressive jump 3.5%, and in composition they had a slight 0.6 percentage point increase. And so this, and you have this information, this just gives you the numbers across the state and by sector. I do want to just show a couple of other slides, and this is where I think the good message here is that we still have some work to do. This gives you the results in math, for example, by subgroup. So if you look at the subgroups and how they did relative from 13 to 14, both for the state, DCPS, and the charter schools. A lot of numbers here, but there's some numbers that certainly give me pause and give all the other members of the education team pause and make us realize we have to work on some of these numbers. So, for example, our English language learners have actually seen a decrease in their proficiency rate as a state, and particularly in the charter schools. So obviously, I know that the charter school board and all the charter school leaders will be talking about how we continue to turn that the other way. And then similar in reading, we had similar decreases in English language learners and our Hispanic cohort. And you look at generally by subgroup. And I think the big message with the subgroups is, again, we've got a long ways to go. One of the big areas of focus for all of us is how do we reduce the achievement gap, making sure that every child has the benefit of the work that we're doing. So this is the data that we're going to continue to dig into and work with the schools to figure out what the plan is to continue to reduce those gaps. Similarly in math, and I won't go through all of those, you have these. A couple of other points. I mentioned at the beginning that we've had the highest growth in our 10th grade year, so our high schools are working, and I know Chancellor Henderson and Scott will probably talk about this, but 5.6 percentage points in math and 3.8 percentage points in reading. So those of you who are working in the high schools or are high school students, congratulations, great work on that. Yes. And I'll end here, and I've talked about it at the beginning, and I think as most people know, because we are a state and we have to comply with lots of the federal requirements. Well, the federal law, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, requires us to classify schools based on performance, and it's performance based on growth and overall proficiency rates and graduation rates and attendance rates and other factors. And so it's just something that we watch to make sure that we're providing the right level of support. So as you look at the breakdown here, we've actually had, for the first time, as I said, 2 schools that have exited priority status, which is a great accomplishment. It takes 3 years of growth, so it's not an easy thing to do. We've also had, if you look at the bullets at the bottom, we've had 8 schools that have exited focus status, which this means that these schools have figured out how to reduce some of the achievement gap. So it's important to note that schools are figuring it out, and part of our job is to work with them to figure out what's actually working. And so this just gives you the breakdown overall. We've got a slight increase in our rising schools, decrease in reward schools, and as I said, the focus schools have gone down. So I think I'm gonna stop there and turn it back over to the mayor.
I think in the interest of time, I will just mention the next 3 speakers, and that would be our Deputy Mayor for Education, Abigail Smith, then Chancellor Henderson, and then Scott Pearson, who will represent the charter schools today, who is the Executive Director of our Public Charter School Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I particularly want to thank Mayor Gray for the leadership that he has shown on any number of issues across the city, but given that the issue that I care most deeply about is education, it truly has been a pleasure to work for a man who is so focused on the goals we are trying to achieve for all of our students across the city and is so committed to that work. So I just want to take the privilege of being at the mic to extend that thank you to you. I want to just take a quick moment. Once a year, we come together, we announce these big scores, which is the one big measure that we have every year to track where our students are. But we know that this is just one measure, and that the work that happens day in and day out at schools, where teachers and students and principals aren't thinking about, is this going to change my CAS scores? They're thinking about, what is it that I can do to ensure that every kid in my school has what they need to succeed on all fronts, academically and in lots of other ways. And so I want to just honor the work that happens in schools every day. These results are important, and we have to hold ourselves accountable to ensuring that our students are achieving academically, and this is a critical measure of that. But I want everyone to take this day also to remember that the day in and day out work is much broader and more comprehensive than that. And I want to just note, as Superintendent Aguirre said, we are here at Stanton for a number of reasons, but one of them is because this is an example of the work that we've done in this city to really support collaboration between public charter schools and DCPS. There are many examples of that, and we see it both at the micro level, where teachers are working together across public schools and DCPS schools and public charter schools on professional development, including some significant work that's gone on across those sectors for these Common Core standards that we've talked so much about, where at the teacher level and the principal level, individuals from public charter schools and DCPS work together, not thinking about what sector they're in, but thinking about what it is that they can learn from each other to ensure that their kids are achieving. We've done an immense amount of work in the city as well to think about how we can ensure charter schools are in good space, because we know that all of our public school students should be in school buildings that support their learning. So the mayor has done an immense amount of work on that, and we're looking forward to more to come. Keep your ears open for some new information on that very soon. But we think that that's really important, and that's work that we as a government are committed to. The mayor talks a lot about how he really has made it a point to ensure that when we meet with our education team as a city, that absolutely is Chancellor Henderson and Superintendent Aguirre, but it also includes Scott Pearson of the Public Charter School Board, because we know that if we are going to make the kinds of changes we want to make in the city, we have to really build the collaboration that can be a huge lever for change across the sectors. So I wanted to just take a minute to note that, again, this is a great place to do that, but it's work that happens that is often not sexy and not out in the public eye, but that we really believe is a critical part of getting us where we need to go. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over to Chancellor Henderson, who can talk a little more about what's gone on in DCPS.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say first and foremost that we are very pleased to see that our students have maintained the previous gains and continue to show growth in both reading and math at DC Public Schools. I have to be very honest with you and say that I'm disappointed, because I was expecting more growth. When I look at the hard work that our teachers and our students and our educators are putting in every single day, they are killing it. And I hope, my expectation is that we'll be able to show even greater growth, that we'll be able to accelerate our progress. So we're happy that we didn't slide backwards. All of my superintendent friends told me after last year's gains, oh, Chancellor Henderson, don't get your hopes up, you're going to go backwards. And I'm thankful that we didn't go backwards, that we maintained, and that in fact, in many of our schools, we saw amazing growth. But in fact, I think it underscores what I said last year. While we've made some tremendous gains, we still have a long way to go. These results actually show that the work that we've been doing is the right work. We just need to pick up the pace. We need to turn it up. And we've had a lot of schools who have actually demonstrated what happens when we turn it up, when we're firing on all cylinders, when everything is working well. And I want to take a moment to highlight a few of these schools. And I want to start with our high schools, because it's been a great year for high schools this year. This year we have high schools, our 10th grade proficiency is up 4.1 points in reading and math. And we had 6 high schools with gains in both reading and math: Cardozo, Coolidge, Dunbar, Luke C. Moore, McKinley, and Wilson. Can you give those high schools a hand? There are lots of folks who say that it's hard to move things in the upper grades, but in fact, we're really proud of the fact that our elementary schools are laying strong foundations, our middle schools are laying strong foundations, and our high schools now are able to pick up the ball and run with it. We also now have the highest level of proficiencies in reading and math that we've ever had before, and we're continuing to grow, which is no small feat. But I want to also congratulate Kelly Miller and Stanton, because moving out of priority status on the federal accountability system is nearly impossible. And to have schools that have been persistent failures that are now recognized as rising schools is an amazing feat. So join me again in congratulating Stanton and Kelly Miller. And then we have some schools here today that are just demonstrations of some of the amazing growth that we've seen across a number of DCPS schools, and I wanted to recognize them. Their principals and their staff members are here. We had Drew Elementary School, which saw a 34% increase in math and an 18% increase in reading. Naima, stand up. It's Principal Salahuddin, congratulations. At Dunbar, which in fact had one of the first 9th grade academies, and this year those 9th graders were 10th graders, and voila, 23.3% increase in reading and a 7.3% increase in math. Dunbar team, stand up. At Ketchum Elementary School, we saw 4.5 points growth in reading and 11.3 growth in math. Principal Riddle Sprigger, please stand up. And at Whittier Education Campus, don't sleep on that little gem up in Ward 4, we saw a 7.6% increase in reading and a 13.3% increase in math. Give it up for Whittier. Thank you, Principal Pritchard. And so I continue to be proud of the work that we're doing at DCPS. Our enrollment is up over where it was this time last year. We expect to see our graduation rate rise, but we are going to continue to turn up the heat. I'm proud of the work that we've done, but we still have a long way to go. And you have my commitment that at DCPS we are going to continue to do that. I also just want to take my hat off one more time. You've heard it over and over again, but you know, we get beat up and we fight each other in the paper sometimes around what charters and DCPS are doing to each other or for each other or with each other or against each other. At the end of the day, if we don't figure out how to work together for our young people, the city will suffer. And I think Stanton is an amazing example of what happens when we work together. I remember sitting in front of the city council. Do you remember this, Councilmember Catania? When Councilmember Berry told me that, you know, Stanton was the worst school that we had in the district. And now, just 4 years later, to be able to celebrate it coming out of accountability status, because this is what happens when DCPS and charters work together. So thank you, Scott, for your cooperation, and come on up and share your good news.
Welcome, everyone. Morning, Mayor Gray, Superintendent Aguirre, Deputy Mayor Smith, Councilmember Catania. Thank you for being here. Welcome. I want to especially shout out Chancellor Henderson. She is an outstanding educational leader in this city, and she's been a great partner with us. So let's give her a hand. I am really pleased that today we're recognizing progress by all students in the District of Columbia, charter and traditional alike. Today is about the students, their parents, and the school leaders. As you would expect, I'm particularly proud of charter schools. Each year I visit many of them. I talk with students and parents and school leaders. They represent some of the best of our great city. For the 9th straight year, students attending public charter schools are performing above the district average in reading and math. And for 9 years in a row, the percentage of charter schools considered proficient, percentage of students in charter schools proficient has gone up. Let me repeat that. Charter proficiency has gone up every single year that we've done this testing. And I'm excited that we're switching to the new park assessment. But we're going to have to start all over on this graph. We're not going to be able to show this graph anymore. The proficiency rates have climbed in 5 of the 7 wards with public charter schools every year for 9 years, and I'm also really proud of this. Among some of our subgroups, black students over the last 9 years, proficiency rates in charter schools have gone from 35% to 54%. It's almost a 20-point gain. The same story with economically disadvantaged students, 34% to 53%, almost a 20% gain. We clearly have more work to do with our special education students, but it's also worth noting that we have seen a 12-point gain over the last 9 years, from 14% to 26%. Finally, I want to shout out some of the schools. Of the 6 highest growth charter schools, 3 of them are here today. Each of these schools scored double-digit growth in their proficiency rates. So the first one I want to shout out is Cesar Chavez Capitol Hill, with 17 points of gain. Friendship Collegiate, 13 percentage points of gain this year. Friendship Collegiate also has one of the highest graduation rates in the city. And finally, Richard Wright Public Charter School. Yeah, give it up. 10 percentage points of gain. And of the 6 highest performing charter schools in the city, 4 of them are here, and these schools show that every child, regardless of background, can succeed academically in school. The first one, KIPP College Prep, with 83 percentage points proficient. Also, KIPP Key, with 80% proficient rate. Washington Latin, 78% proficient. And Thurgood Marshall Academy in Ward 8 was 77% proficient. So again, congratulations to these schools, congratulations to the students, and congratulations to the city for the continued progress that we've made.
Thank you very much to all of our presenters, and it's wonderful to be able to share the good news, recognizing, of course, that we do have continuing significant challenges. Before we open it up for questions, we have been joined by Councilmember David Catania, who chairs the Council Committee on Education, and I want to ask him if he would like to come up and say a few words before we open it up. Councilmember.
We almost saw the mayor.
Nice,
almost impaled himself on the flag here. Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. And I want to congratulate everyone today for the success that our students and our schools are showing. The mayor alluded to, I think we have some challenges, no question, ahead of us, but that's a subject for another day. Today we celebrate the progress that we've made and the great school leaders that have joined us here today and those who haven't. And of course, we're grateful for the continued professionalism and service and dedication of our principals and our teachers. And Mr. Mayor, I hope that one of the things we did in partnership that comes to fruition tomorrow or next month will be the at-risk funding that we worked on together to secure, nearly $80 million in additional resources for students who are poor and at risk. This is the largest single. Thank you. This is the largest investment in the history of our city in at-risk students, and once fully and faithfully executed, the devolution of these funds to the control of principals to come up with the unique interventions that will set their schools up to succeed, I think will lay the foundation for even greater and stronger growth going forward. Mr. Mayor, there's no greater responsibility for a city than to secure the success of every child in every neighborhood without exception. We have a tradition in this city, unfortunately, of not making that a priority. And over the last many years, we've attempted to reverse that, but it takes time and hard work. We're here to celebrate the incredible success of our students, Mr. Mayor, and I want to echo the words of Deputy Mayor Smith in thanking you for making this a priority in your administration and for working with the Committee on Education on many, many items. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Catania, and thank you for mentioning the at-risk funds. We, as you well know, we engaged in conducting an adequacy study, and that resulted in, I would say, probably an unprecedented increase for this year, and I want to thank the Council for working with us to be able to get there. We are investing $116 million, some of which, $4 million of which will include early childhood education $112 million of additional funds to be able to address some of the issues that you and others alluded to. So there will be a substantial increase in funding heading into the next school year, I guess at the beginning of the fiscal year, which will be soon after the school year begins, which will make available additional resources to be able to address what we know is a daunting challenge, and that is the achievement gap, which has been with us for decades, and we're beginning to chip away at, but recognize that we have a significant distance yet to travel. The media, you have any questions for me or for any of our presenters? Deputy Mayor Smith, Chancellor Henderson, Executive Director Pearson, Councilmember Catania. Yes.
I just wanted to see if someone could talk about what it was about the partnership between Stanton and the charter school that made it succeed the way it did, and what can that say about other partnerships that you have in other schools in DC?
Well, maybe it would be appropriate to have the principal and the chancellor come up to talk about that, because they've been close to this, and I guess I have geographically also, since I live right around the corner. You know, I should mention, too, before they answer the question, that the two schools that were cited as having made such amazing accomplishments, that was Kelly Miller and Stanton, both of them on the east end of the city, where we've had some of the greatest achievement challenges for our young people. You know, what it underscores, and when we make the investments, we do it with fidelity, and we do it with a recognition that these young people can achieve irrespective of where they live. It shows that we can overcome what have been, you know, historically cited challenges for some of our young people in the city. And the day will come, it won't be this day, but the day will come when there won't be an achievement gap. We will have people who live west of Connecticut Avenue who will say, I want to go, you know, to school X, Kelly Miller or H.D. Woodson or whatever.
4 years ago, we embarked upon a very innovative partnership with Scholar Academies Charter Management Organization. And Scholar Academies had turned around some low-performing middle schools in Philadelphia, and they came to us and they said, we want to help you turn around some low-performing schools here in DC CAS. And so we partnered with Scholar Academies to turn around Stanton Elementary School. And we gave full control of Stanton to Scholar Academies. They selected a principal. We co-signed on the principal, who's our principal. We hired, but they supervise and manage the entire staff and all of the activities. And for 4 years, we've seen tremendous progress. I'll let Principal Johnson talk about what it looks like in the day-to-day. But to the second part of your question around what it could mean for future partnerships, of course, we're in discussions around how we could use this model in other situations to help turn around persistently low-performing schools.
Thank you for your question. I would say that at the crux and the foundation of it is just thought partnership. We have in the Scholar Academies model and the Scholar Academies network, we have instructional support and collaboration. On the DCPS side, we have instructional support and collaboration. In Scholar Academies, we have operational autonomies and operational support. In DCPS, we have operational autonomies and operational support. And I think what happens at Stanton is the synergy of all of the good thinking. And we have been given, I guess, you know, a lot of responsibility with all of those, you know, with that trust that happens here at Stanton every day. But operationally, it looks like we take on a few additional assessments because we want to really dig in around what students know and what they don't know and how we're going to get to the growth that we want to see. We also use our dollars a little bit more flexibly so that we can incentivize students, because we know at the basic levels, we have to offer some tangible incentives in order to really make it part of who our scholars are. And so I would say that it's a number of things, but on the day-to-day level, it's just like thought partnership is what makes this work.
Well, I want to add one thing. I mean, one of the things, Scholar Academies is unique because they both partner with us on Stanton, but they also have their own charter school. And, you know, one of the things that Lars, who represents Scholar Academies, and I have been talking about is whether or not it makes sense for them to continue to open new charter schools or to just be in a turnaround business. And so I think as new and interesting as it is a strategy for us, I think it's also an interesting and new strategy for some charter management organizations to begin to consider. So as Rena said, it's increasing both of our thinking in both sectors.
I think what this underscores, this is obviously a model that is working, but it underscores the importance of committing to innovation. When you look back at the mid-'90s when charters came along, that was a major step forward in innovation. The PARA in 2007 was a major step in innovation. What we did on the early childhood education front was a major step in innovation. And now being able to say that 94% of our 4-year-olds go to school all day, every day. 80% of our 3-year-olds go to school all day, every day. And we're increasing the numbers of infant and toddlers who are exposed to an organized, formalized education and development program. The fact that this year we are expanding the number of schools that will have an extended day, that the extended day for a number of schools will go to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it takes. That we're looking now at expanding the school year. So what it underscores is not necessarily just this model that's working here. It underscores the importance of being able to be flexible and be innovative and open the door to differences that may make a difference in the lives of our children. It's amazing to me that we will stand up in many arenas and talk about the importance of innovation and flexibility in education, and then some of the most rigid models that have been implemented in any endeavor have been in education. And I hopefully that is the direction that we are moving away from.
Hi,
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit more about what you see happening with the English language learners, Hispanic students, both on the charter and traditional side? Are you looking at re-examining some of the services or instructional programs?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the deputy mayor to come back up as well. And frankly, this is a collaborative effort with the charters as well as DCPS. And I suppose your question is focused on how we're seeing gains taking place there, and where the challenges, of course, continue to exist. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I'll start with something that's just sort of more at the policy level, and then turn it over to these folks to talk a little more about what's happening in schools. The mayor mentioned the adequacy study that we took on over the course of the last year, and one of the things that that was part of that was looking at what are the costs that it would take, what are the resources it would take to ensure that English language learners have the kinds of supports that they need. And we know that English language learners need certain additional supports. I mean, that's sort of common sense, but figuring out what that amounts to and ensuring that we're providing adequate resources. And so you'll see in our new funding formula that a couple of folks, Councilmember Catania referred to and the mayor referred to, our new funding formula includes a notable increase in the weight for English language learners. And so the idea there is that we know that you've got to provide the financial resources that then schools can translate into the kind of services they deliver. So I'll sort of hand it off now to talk a little bit about what actually happens in the schools.
Last year, actually, we started to see that our English language learners were not progressing as quickly as some of our other subgroups. And so we've actually spent this year looking all across the country at best practices, mostly in California, because they've done amazing work with English language learners in terms of accelerating their proficiency. And one of the things that we found in analyzing our data is that when we have our English language learners from the elementary grades, we actually do a very good job of moving them out of ELL status and into proficiency status. When we get our young people at the middle and high school grades, it becomes a little more difficult. And so one of the things that you'll see is an international academy, for example, at a Cardozo Education Campus, modeled similarly after our Newcomers Academy at Columbia Heights Education Campus, where in fact our young people who come in with language issues are in a different environment where they're provided with intensive supports and resources to help them gain the English language skills. Whereas again, we looked at what folks are doing a lot in LA, and they've been helpful in improving the graduation rates of English language learners. And so you'll see in a number of our high schools and our middle schools some interventions over the course of the next year that should propel our ELLs at the same rate, if not faster, than some of our other subgroups. We're pleased at some of the progress that we've made this year, but we know that we have more to do.
I guess I not too much to add to that. Two points. I think about the charter board and English language learners as being analogous to where we were with special education 3 or so years ago, where we took a lot of steps and started really focusing on it. We have some schools that do an outstanding job. I think of DC Bilingual in particular that produces outstanding results. But on the whole, we need to do a better job with all of our charter schools in providing them with the supports. The other thing I would say is the data on English language learners' proficiency has always been a little bit puzzling to me. It's quite volatile. We've only seen 2 years here, but if we look back several years, it bounces around more than a lot of subgroups, and given the size of the population, which is more than 1,000 students, it shouldn't be moving around that much. And so we feel like we need to better understand the data and what it means. Thank you.
For those who may be wondering, I'm sure you now recognize, having sat here, that FMES works extensively over here and quickly. Any other questions before we end? Yes.
One more out there. So one of the messages I think this year and last year was also that you're making gains. Schools are making.
Okay. Yeah.
So one of the messages is that schools are making gains, but the gains aren't as much as you would hope, or there's still a lot of work left to be done. And then the capital commitment plan that you guys had is going to come to an end in 2 or 3 years, and you guys had hoped for 70%. Do you think at this point that's reachable, or do you think that might be a couple years further down the line?
You mean getting to the achievement level? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're going to work hard to make that happen. Again, I want to, not at the risk of being redundant, I want to underscore how far we have had to come. And this has been going on for decades. So I'm excited about the progress that's being made. We still have challenges in 3 years. That's not so much I would look at. I would look at how much progress have we made, and are we on the right trajectory then to be able to eventually close the gap. I think we are, and I think we will continue on that trajectory. So I think that's the most important thing to me, not whether we make it to an arbitrary point in an arbitrary period over 3 years, but are we making progress? Are we continuing to improve our instructional leaders in our schools? Are our teachers continuing to improve? Are the indices that we know that reflect improvement, enduring improvement over time, are they continuing to improve? And the scores will follow behind. The scores are an important barometer because people pay so much attention to scores. But frankly, what I pay attention to is, are we encouraging innovation, and are we embedding our instructional programs in the city with those pillars that will make the difference over time? All right. Thank you all very much.